Hello and welcome to the gak.co.uk Guitar Shop podcast. I am your host Mark Packham. Who is with me this evening?
Hello, my name's Matt and I'm the manager in store.
And I am Joe and I'm here for all your bass-related queries.
Gents, I can already feel that this is going to be a fired-up podcast this evening.
We're on fire.
Everyone seems to be fairly on it. How have your weeks been? Have you been playing guitar?
I have. I've been working a lot. I did like loads of extra days. As Jay, as we didn't hear his voice, is on holiday.
We should mention that regular guest or regular contributor Jay Cross is not here this evening. He's off
on holiday, so I've been covering him. So I've been working a lot, but I've been trying to find time to play some guitar. Went to the Natural History Museum.
Oh, did you?
It's also very interesting.
Any sort of guitar related?
Not yet. Just give it a few years.
Oh, what? That's when relics, fossil guitars.
Yeah. That's when relic guitars. They're sort of old.
I don't think it works like that.
Yeah. Although, actually, I did, on guitar-related news, in terms of what's happening, a town in Sweden has been nominated as the European arts capital for 2014.
City of Arts and Culture.
Yeah, that's it. And they
more than Brighton.
Yeah, and two.
Weird.
Well, they change it. I think they change it every year.
Yeah.
But two brothers who have this amazing vintage guitar collection are putting on a huge show, and it runs throughout the entire year.
Sweet.
And I was reading about that in the Guitarist magazine, and it looks really good. They've got the largest collection of B-benders. They've got 30.
That's mental.
Of CBS and pre-CBS Fender B-benders.
What guitars
That's
that have
amazing.
been fitted with B-benders?
Yes, some factory standard, some.
Wait, what did stuff?
I think they did it as special orders, but yeah, loads of stuff. They've got loads of Paisley guitars and
wow,
loads of kind of vintage Les Pauls and stuff. Yeah, and they were like, yeah, we're not like rich collectors. I work in a guitar shop for my day job. One of them said, and the other one's some sort of activist for some sort of council.
Awesome. Do you know, in really sad news on the guitar front for this week, Dan Electro have discontinued their completely Paisley guitar. Yeah, was it 56, 59?
I do love Paisley.
I love Dan Electro, but I hate the way that they discontinue everything.
Yeah, I know.
Why
Did
give you a
you ever see
chance?
that? Just
Never
for
gives you a
anyone who
chance.
hasn't seen it, that particular guitar, I think was it their 56?
Yeah, it's
shape?
a 56.
It's the 56, but
yeah.
Paisley. I think we've mentioned it before, actually.
Yeah.
When we say it's Paisley, it's Paisley.
There's nothing on it that isn't Paisley.
We're including the fretboard here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
awesome.
awesome.
It looks like
And the tuners.
I'm sure we talked about this guitar, but it looks like someone's wrapped a guitar in Paisley wrapping paper.
Yeah.
But all over it to the exact shape of the guitar.
The image that we had on our website looks photoshopped.
Yeah.
It doesn't look real, but it is. But not anymore.
I never actually got to see one in the flesh.
No, nor did I.
They
all went out and just. I had a discussion with someone about Dan Electro today, and I was like, they're just cool guitars.
Yeah.
They are cool guitars.
We've
cool
said it a
people
few-
play them.
We've said it a few times on the podcast, and it's just such a shame that you literally never even get a chance
Well, I was reading
to get your
about
hands on them.
they did a 36 fret baritone in the 60s, something like that.
I want one.
The Mando something. It was like mandolin tuning, I think, or something ridiculous. It was like an 8-string or something, but it had a super scaled neck. But they were terribly. They sold terribly well, not terribly well, really just terribly
well.
just terribly. Yeah, and then they only made something like 500, something like that. But they
I want one. Let's track one down. If anyone's got any,
I like Dan Electro. They're risky. You know?
Yeah.
What other company would continue to make their guitar bodies out of masonite and still remain popular?
but they still
they sound great.
We talked about a couple of weeks ago. No, they
talked about it
still
last
do
week
the
when we
Dan.
talked about the
They still do
long
the Dan Echo, a pedal that's been in the catalogue for ages. But I just don't understand why they just do this one thing. And the real Echo, actually, it's two things that they've done for 10 years, and then everything else they do for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, new 56, amazing, dead on, Dano,
Well,
brilliant reissues. Oh no, you can't get one. Sorry,
do you
it's
remember the square guitar bodies shape that they
Yeah.
did a few years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, so
Do
good.
you know what I've seen a lot of recently? The mini pedals they used to do.
Yeah.
But you used to be able to buy a pedal board, and it had
Yes.
6 of their mini pedals. But
It was
the last
geared up.
one was a little amplifier.
Yeah, it had a little
Yes.
speaker on it.
I
But
remember
they had great
this.
names. They was
Surf and Turf.
grilled cheese.
Grilled
Yeah.
cheese, yes.
Yeah, they were all based on sandwiches, weren't they?
Yeah, something like pastrami, corn. There was the corn beef.
How
Like
great
metal
is that?
overdrive.
No,
I know.
Yeah, corn. Yeah, there was the corn.
This
beef.
is off topic a little bit, but how great is corned beef? What? You're mental.
I'm a big fan of corned beef.
Yeah, I love a bit of beef.
Anyway, that's
So-
enough of beef and pedals.
Dan Electro. Yeah. Anyway, so this week, let's get back on the plan for this episode. This week, inspired by a question that we had a few weeks ago about signature guitars. Basically, signature guitars. Does the fact that they're attached inherently to an artist either enhance them, or does it detract from the guitar? Boys,
We should definitely have done like a motion for and against.
we could. I think we could.
It's a real tough one. I mean, we could probably talk for an hour about and not even mention like in depth any products that we sell that are signatures. Just I think it's just such a I think even between us, it's just such a kind of big debate, really, isn't it?
Where do you stand on it?
For a long time, I think when I first started, I was like, why would you play someone's signature? But then after a while, you start seeing signature guitars that come out that you're like, that is so cool because they don't make it like the Mikey Wade, like the Silver Sparkle bass, and you're like,
true.
And then I just kind of think, I mean, we'll get into it in depth, I'm sure, but I kind of think if you play, as I've said it before, if you played a guitar for ages and you were like, yeah, I'm vibing with this guitar, yeah, it's tons of character, absolutely love it, and then someone like peeled a bit of tape off the headstock and it had someone's signature on it, would you then put it down and go, nah, I don't like it?
See, I actually think it does.
I think
make
it puts
a difference.
people off. I think it puts
does.
people off.
Well, but I think it's completely dependent on the artist. For example, I mean, how many Mikey Way basses have we sold to people who are big fans of Chemical Romance, or Mark Hoppus basses to people who are big fans of Blink-182? They're very popular within that genre because of the people that play them. That said, someone outside of that genre, would it put me off playing a Mark Hoppus? I don't know. I think I really like the sound and the look of a Mark Hoppus, and actually this actually did happen to me, because I always thought, I sort of agreed with you. I thought, it doesn't really matter. And I probably would play a Mark Hoppus because I think Blink-182 are really cool. But I really dislike Green Day, but I love the Mike Dirnt P bass. And there was a while ago, I was thinking about getting one, and I was like, it boiled down to the fact that I really didn't want people to assume that I liked Green Day.
I find it funny, and this is very specific to the Mark Hoppus bass, that obviously Blink-182 were kind of famous and kind of popular from 1998 up to about 2005 when they split up.
99 was Enema of the State.
Well, yeah, and then they split up. And I find it really funny that even up to like last year, you see hardcore bands where the bass player has got a Mark Hoppus because he was obviously a huge Blink-182 fan, and then in the interim, kind of growing up and learning about hardcore, has kept the same bass.
They're actually perfect for hardcore.
Well,
They've
of course,
got quarter pounders in them.
Yeah,
big necks.
Perfect. I don't know. I find it funny because some of them, I think it depends how individual. Or how much that particular bass is associated with that artist.
Yeah,
like,
that's kind of what I meant.
I don't think I could play a Mark Hoppus, even though I quite like Blink-182 and I really like the bass. I think there's too much, for me personally, there's too much about him and that music and that band in that guitar, in that particular guitar.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, in terms of something like, I don't know, an Eric Clapton Strat even, or some of the guitars that we're going to talk about things like the Rusty Anderson 335.
Yeah.
I think they're not necessarily like an iconic guitar for that player or a particular sound.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the Chris Cornell, right? So, awesome guitar came out this year, really limited. I thought, they'll go straight away, and we sold a lot of them, but we've still got one on the wall, and I pick it up and I'm like, you don't have to be into like Soundgarden and tuning down with like loads of like distortional fuzz, because they actually work as an instrument like totally in their own right.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily say that people into Soundgarden would probably, I don't know whether they would really look down that route. They'd go, well, no, I want like an SG or a Les Paul, and you think, well, actually he plays one of those, and it's just such a tough one because it's just.
I agree. I mean, I tell you what, Glenn, who works in our education department, gave me a shout yesterday and said that he was looking to buy his granddad a Strat, but he really wanted like a 50s styled Strat, and didn't want to spend too much money. And I ended up suggesting the Simon Neil.
Yeah, that's what I was going to come to actually.
Yeah.
Well, they're more of a 60s style because they're Rosewood board. But
Yeah.
I mean, if you want like a nice Fiesta Red guitar,
I say it was basically a ball down to like the Fiesta Red as a colour
Yeah.
sort of thing. So I ended up suggesting that as something that was great value for money.
yeah,
And it's something like that is so very subtle in its how much it is. I mean, all it is a Fiesta Red 60 strap.
Yeah,
whereas
totally.
you look at the Mark Hoppus, it's very much, it's a jazz-based body with a precision-based neck and a precision pickup, just the one volume control. Like, it's totally designed around.
Yeah, I think I think that's the thing. I think with signatures, they can vary so much dependent on price. Like the Simon Neil's an awesome guitar because those classic vibes are wicked guitars for the money, but he's had an input into the colour and what he wants it to look like, but in terms of what extras on there's not a huge amount else because they're like, well, no, we're going to sell these as a budget-ish Squire, 300 quid. And I think the same goes for some Mexican ones, with an exception of a couple of models. It's only when you go up to ones that are going to be like truly expensive, I think you find that they kind of go, well, yeah, we'll put whatever you want on it. But then again, there's talks of reading guitarist, and we were talking about it with another customer, the Nile Rodgers Hitmaker
yeah,
that's coming out,
which will be a very specific guitar because his guitar is very, very specific.
I don't know if I'm assuming they're going to be American built.
I think they'll be custom shop, probably.
Yeah, really? Yeah.
But I mean, now we've laid out some sort of criteria as to why and why not you might want to buy or not buy a particular signature model. There's been a lot of signature models released this year, and I thought we could just do a quick rundown on some of the stuff and maybe talk about these points with relation to what's on these particular guitars, how that relates to the artist, and whether that would put people off or maybe push them towards a particular guitar.
Yeah.
So the first one that I've got on this list actually is one that we've just done a video demo on today. Super limited edition. There's not many at all worldwide. Really interesting guitar. The Gibson / Vermilion Les Paul.
Sounded amazing.
It did sound very, very good. So the spec on this is, I mean, it's kind of like, it's almost like a Les Paul traditional 60s neck. But
I mean, I'm not 100% of the background of this particular one because obviously everyone knows about the AFD, and then he had the Tobacco Sunburst one with the Piezo Bridge, which I think was one of his main guitars for a long time. So I think this is just based on another Les Paul that he's used.
It sort of reminds me, I remember for a while Epiphone were doing, when he was doing a lot with the Slash's Snake Pit, is that his other band?
Yeah, well, he's got a couple, isn't he? Blues Bowl, Snake Pit.
They did a guitar that was like a red, deep, like wine red, but it had like a little Slash logo on the guitar itself.
Yeah.
The little Snake Pit top hat type thing. And this kind of reminds me of that guitar. It's like I mean, it's not quite as deep red, so we've got a kind of bit of an orange vibe to it. But it reminds me of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just. I think the thing is, if you took the Slash away, it's actually in its right. It's actually just a really, really cool guitar. I think as in terms of tone. I mean, I'm not the world's biggest Guns N' Roses fan, but just in terms of playing it when we demo, I think it sounds great. And I mean, the thing is, if you lay it out, it's mahogany body, 60s neck. AAA maple top, very, very similar to what they do in a standard without all the extra switching, but what you've got is you've got a proper Tone Pros bridge, and then you've got the Slash pickups, and I think the Slash pickups make a fairly big difference.
They do,
but they're not a particularly high output pickup. They're Gibson PAF style pickups, so they're actually Alnico 2 magnets in a fairly low output overall. So they work, fairly well in conjunction with your amp if you're using quite a lot of drive. I mean, they've put things in there like, vintage capacitors. But, I mean, all in all, just a good guitar. I mean, I would personally... I would play a Les Paul like that, and whether it said Slash on the headstock or not, I think overall, if you're trying to shine through as a guitarist... it's ultimately your tone, But
it's quite a good subtle example of a way to do a signature model, because I suppose signature models at the end of the day are a guitar in the way that the artist would do it differently from the manufacturer.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, if you looked at when they did the AFD, so they did the aged ones, we had the £10,000 one we had, about a year or so ago. If you look at that guitar, you go, that's Slash's guitar that he played types of construction. You looked at this, you wouldn't necessarily say that's the guitar.
Well, that's
Slash
it, and
played.
I suppose that brings us back to kind of what we were saying about the Mark Hoppers. It depends how visually iconic it is and how associated it is with that artist. This essentially, again, it is a Les Paul. Like, you know, comparing to kind of, I suppose, bass again and back to the Mike Dirnt bass doesn't exist, like, outside of Mike Dirnt.
Yeah, and the Mark Hoppers, you know, they don't exist.
Yeah, exactly. They're not. They are only available as that. This is a Les Paul with some alternative switching,
and
which you might just happen to prefer. And if you do prefer, there should be no reason why.
Well, in fact, it's kind of almost less switching. There's none of the stuff from the new standards on there.
Or
it's
none
just
of the limited edition traditional price. I mean, and also it's 2199. That's cheaper than a AAA or quadruple A flamed.
Is it?
Well, actually, no. Sorry, the AAA is a 2099. So it's cheaper than a quadruple A flamed one with all the extra switching.
And you get, you know, those pickups are not a cheap set of pickups that are in there.
No, a couple of £100.
I think with these, I don't know. These, I think, if you want a good Les Paul and you really like that colour, then it is a cracking guitar, whether you are a Slash fan or not.
Yeah.
If you're a Slash fan, then because of the limited nature of them and because of how they're tied in with him, if you're looking at a Les Paul anyway, then why not?
I mean, even going down onto, you know, talking about signature items, signature pickups, they're actually a really, really good pickup. Yeah. And, you know, if I was going to go for a Les Paul and you wanted a good vintage Les Paul tone, the Slash set would be a really good set to go for.
Yeah.
Because they really shine through the, you know, the mahogany and the maple of your Les Paul. I think, you know, and actually we sell probably more of those than anyone else. And I wouldn't necessarily say that everyone I've ever sold a set to is probably a huge Slash fan, or is even necessarily putting them in a Strat, in a Les Paul.
In a Les Paul, yeah. They might be going in an SG or something more, even more metal focused, even though they're not a particularly high output pickup.
Yeah.
Just because they cut through a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I think the kind of it's whilst that will be designed around Slash's playing style, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to play in that style to appreciate the tone that it presents.
Well, of course, yeah. You could just like his guitar sound, but perhaps not like the songs that it's used on.
Well, exactly. To mention Billy Sheehan again, I absolutely love Billy Sheehan's tone, and it's something that I seek when I'm trying to, you know, just dialing in anything. But I can't play anything like him. I don't try to play anything like him. I play in a completely different style. But it's the tone that I'm after, not the playing style. So, and I suppose the same thing kind of applies across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it depends really. I mean, I think we're probably going to go on to some other models anyway. But you know, like you say, if you're after a really good Slash kind of guitar, might not look like the one you know, but it's going to give you that sort of tone. But then again, if you're after a kind of Les Paul that actually sounds different, and I think maybe more vintage sounding than some of the standard Les Pauls out there now, it would be a good addition to any kind really.
Now, the other Gibson guitar that we've got down on this list, basically we're going to talk about signatures that have come out this year, and there's two really that have been kind of prominent and are still available. The Slash Vermilion and also the Rusty Anderson, which we talked about briefly at the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah, which is sort of just arrived really.
Yeah, we did a video demo on it this morning, going up on the site fairly soon.
And actually, I think this is a really good example, and I mean, some people might be like, oh my God, when I say this, but when I got this, I was like, this is an awesome guitar. Like, I got that case, and I was like, but who is Rusty Anderson? And the thing is, if no one had told me, if it was just a fella who worked in the Gibson shop and I played it, I'd go, this guitar is amazing. But you wouldn't really care about the name on the headstock because most people probably aren't going to know. And I mean, when I've talked to, say, Nick from Gibson before, Gibson are doing signature models for people that probably in the UK have never heard of.
Yeah, Sully Erna.
Yeah, Captain Kirk Douglas.
Yeah,
coming out. It's like you're like, well,
who was that black Les Paul they did with the
Sully Erna?
Oh, that was Sully Erna.
Yeah.
Sully Erna from Godsmack, which actually in its own right was an awesome guitar.
Yeah. Have we still got that guitar?
Yeah, we do.
Still got the
It's
Sully
next to the
built-in flanger. What more could you want?
Oh, it's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's up next to the plywood one.
The Zoot.
The Zoot suit.
Yeah.
So Rusty Anderson, I think actually they've done this guitar very well because he's most prominently known as Paul McCartney's guitar player.
Yeah.
and he's been part of the Paul McCartney band for the last 10 years, I guess, ish.
He's in the Beatles.
But he's also he's not in the Beatles. He's also just a session player, and actually I think signature models work quite well when they make them for artists who are more known for doing their sessions and being part of backup bands.
I mean, you say session work, so his session work includes sort of Elton John, Neil Diamond, Sinead O'Connor, Willie Nelson. I mean, the thing is, you wouldn't necessarily go, yeah, I'm really after that kind of Elton John
guitar sound.
Guitar sound. Do you know what I mean? But
it makes it a guitar really brilliantly suited to being versatile, I suppose, being from a session player. I mean, very briefly to mention Reggie Hamilton, who we were talking about at the start, another kind of big session player for bass, and his signature model, his signature Fender sort of jazz bass, P bass hybrid, is kind of loaded with everything that a bass player would need to be versatile. You can run it active or passive. It's got precision and jazz pickups, jazz bass neck, hip shot detuner. Yeah. Anyway,
I think it almost, and the Rusty Anderson is a kind of good case in point, really, is that we're, for example, talking about this in this podcast, or we're talking about on the site, because it isn't just another 335 reissue, or it's not just a new 335 standard. There's something else about it, and although the guitar itself doesn't really have any flashy features, because the name is attached, it will get a bit of extra publicity, and people who are either a fan of McCartney or just of kind of, I don't know, music in general really, might stick out a bit more in their mind. And I think that's where signature models work quite well actually, is when they don't stray too far from a standard model, but then you get a name attached and there's kind of a bit more, almost like a bit more hype about them, but they still make a great guitar.
In fact, I was talking to one of the guys who's our sort of Gibson purchaser, and he went out to the factory when they were building these, and he said that Rusty Anderson was really, really particular about how the guitar should sound, how it should look, and I think it's based on one that he already plays, but he's really kind of geeky and really into his pickups, and apparently they went through like tons of sets, and that's why these ones have got like custom buckers, but the custom buckers for this are specifically wound for this and this only.
Right.
So they've actually made pickups just for this guitar.
Oh, that's brilliant. How much is it hitting the shelf at that sort of level?
2669, and it is. I'll tell you what, the 335s we're getting through at the moment are absolutely unreal.
What's the kind of price lift from normal 335?
Well, I mean, I would say we've talked a lot about 335s recently. Like me and Jay have said about the 63s, and we sell a lot of 335s now, and we've talked about how popular they are, and I think they're almost selling equally to Les Pauls.
Yeah.
And I mean, a standard 335 now, like a flame top gloss, is going to cost you probably about 2,499, and they do a plain top gloss, and then they do a
flame
like
gloss,
a satin, stuff like that.
Right.
But actually, I think the thing is, the models that are coming out, the 63s, the 59s, things like this, the Chris Cornell, are so good, they're pretty much outselling just the standard models.
Yeah.
Because they offer something a little bit different, they're a little bit more limited. I was telling a guy today, actually, with Gibson, I said the joy of Gibson at the moment, especially when you look at this sort of level, is that every time you look at the wall, if you come in once a month, every time you look at the wall, there'll be something different, because Gibson now aren't going, here's our catalogue for that sort of stuff. They're going, here's what we're making right now, check it out, we're only doing 50, and that's it.
Yeah,
we're gone.
And we talked about how this year is kind of the year of the Les Paul, and they've been focusing on Les Pauls, but they've been doing 335s as well. But within those brackets, it isn't. They haven't just gone, right, it's the year of the Les Paul, here's the studio, here's the standard, here's the traditional, see you later. What they've done is they've gone, here's the studio, and like you say, they've gone, oh, here's also 500 Studio Deluxe 2s that have got call taps, a 10 dB boost, Zebra pickups, these finishes that you've never seen before. Here they are. And like you say, it means that every time you come in, or every time you're looking online for a Les Paul, there's new stuff.
And it's also good, because that means that you know, if you love Les Pauls, it's, say if you own Les Paul and you love it, and you're like, I want another guitar, but maybe I shouldn't buy another Les Paul. For a long time, there was no point, I think, especially when I started playing, there was no point in having two guitars that were from the same company, because pretty much they were always exactly the same.
Yeah, Fender did a standard Strat.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah, there's no point in having two Strats. No point in an American one. Oh, yeah, I'll have a Mexican one as a backup. No point, you'd never play it.
Yeah.
now you could quite easily have two Les Pauls or two Fenders, and they could be the same body type but be totally different guitars.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be quite easy. Say you bought a Les Paul in standard in the 90s or a classic in the 90s.
Yeah.
You could come in now and you could only look at Les Pauls, and I would say there would be, I don't know, 10 options for you that were vastly different from what you already owned, and definitely worth purchasing.
Yeah. And included with that are signature models.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, that you could look at and go and consider that a viable option, not go, but I'm maybe not into his tone, or maybe I'm not into that player. It's just one of those things. It's like, no, that is a definite option that you should look at.
Yeah.
As a model, it's there, you know.
So we've covered a couple of Gibsons. Let's go to the other one of the big two. Fender have done some cool stuff this year, which has been super limited. Two tellies that I want to talk about first. The Graham Coxon and the Wilco Johnson. Yeah. Both Mexican tellies, both with very, very kind of niche tweaks, let's say. Let's do the Graham Coxon first, because that one is still available, actually.
Yeah, well, the bizarre thing...
amazing.
Yeah, the crazy thing about the Graham Coxon, and actually quite a lot of these models that you'll see, is that they will make them, and especially with the Graham Coxon, they'll be European market only, generally. Because
this applies to the Wilco Johnson as well.
This also applies to Wilco Johnson, mainly because Blur probably not as big overseas as...
I don't know, though, because Blur were pretty big in America, and I know people in Japan as well who are like super into Blur. I don't think it was particularly niche to Europe. I just think Fender Europe have managed to, you know, get these guitars and go, look, we just want some Europe exclusives.
Yeah. I suppose that, I mean, you know, really the same, like I said, with the Wilco Johnson, but only available in Europe. They came out 18 months, 2 years ago. We had a run, they did a run of them, and they just went. I don't think I saw a single one.
I was working in the shop a bit at that time, and I think we had one on the shop floor for about 2 days.
Really? I've never actually seen one.
And I actually sold one on Sunday.
Yeah.
And I don't think the fella really knew who he was, or actually was even aware it was a signature model.
Really?
Plugged it in and was just like, that's a good guitar.
But they look fantastic, and I wonder if this is where we're going to differ on basses and guitars. We just talked about two signature models that you could happily buy and play without having any knowledge of the person, because they're just tweaked guitars. And again, this one is just a really wicked looking Telecaster.
The thing is, I like Blur, but I wouldn't necessarily look at that guitar and go, that's the guitar he played.
Yeah.
No, exactly. That's what I mean.
You know, I wouldn't go, I definitely remember him playing that all that time.
It's weird, isn't it? Because it's the only Mexican-made HS telly, or SH telly, that doesn't have wide range humbuckers. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool...
Oh, it's not wide range?
No. It's like, it's a proper Seymour Duncan SH1.
Oh, right.
Like, that's it's got the same sort of
that makes it
spec
really
cool. That I put in some of the custom shop stuff that I spec, in terms of, like, you know, SH, Seymour Duncan in the neck.
What's in the bridge? Is it just a regular Mexican
I think so. I don't think it's just a vintage single coil telly bridge position pickup, which is probably the same one they put in a lot of their Mexican guitars.
It's probably the similar thing from like the classic range 50s tellies.
But I mean, to be able to have like a proper humbucker, because otherwise you've got Blacktop, which is HH, or you've got something with wide range, which is...
It's a different sound altogether, really. They
totally
don't sound like... They haven't really followed that kind of path, kind of mid-rangey, what you think of as a humbucker sound. Wide range humbuckers actually sound really different to that.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of an odd one, really.
I mean, it's just a cool sounding guitar, and obviously it's got a modern fretboard radius as well. It's 9.5, where some of the signatures and some of the other ones, more the vintage ones, are all 7.25.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just a good playing and good sounding guitar. And the thing is, people go, I'd put different pickups in it. It's like, there's no point. It's already got a Seymour Duncan in it. I mean, you're not really going to upgrade that much more from what's already in there. And at 565 quid.
Ouch. Yeah. That's really wicked.
And it's the only thing that you'll get that's going to be that sort of configuration as well, which I think is really good, because there isn't just anything else out there on the market, really.
Nothing else with that spec, really.
Yeah.
Now,
so I mean, that's I was just going to say quickly, that's a perfect example of All right, so you're after that exact spec guitar. You want something with a humbucker in the neck and a single coil, and someone gives you that guitar, which has got someone's signature on it, or a black top, which is like, well, it's got 2 humbuckers on it, but it's sort of there.
It's,
you know,
I think it's one
go?
of those ones where you might hand that to a customer, they don't know it's a signature, and go, yes, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And then you go, oh, you do know it's a Graham Coxon, and then perhaps they're put off by the fact it's a signature.
Yeah.
When actually you should just say, you know, does it play really nicely? Do you like the look of it? Do you like the sound? Great. Don't worry about the fact that it's a signature model.
This is another example of a signature model that is just a cool looking, cool sounding version. Like, it's just subtle tweaks on an existing design. I think maybe because bass players are kind of, you know, I think we've spoken about it before, where bass players kind of lean more towards a boutique market than guitar players do. And so a lot of signature models tend to be hybrids or things that don't actually exist. So
it's much more...
They're definitive signature
models. And it's proper spec tweaks rather than just, you know, we'll change the colour like the Simon Neil, or, you know, put a humbucker in the neck. It's proper like, we've had to redesign the whole bass specifically for this artist.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the thing is with, you know, with guitars is if someone was, you know, famous for playing a Strat for their entire career, and then they went, cool, well, we're going to make you a signature Strat, you're not going to go, yeah, well, I want it with like 3 humbuckers and like, you know, lasers, because your guitar doesn't have that already.
That's your signature, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd definitely put lasers on it.
You tried to pretend like you were making that up on the spot when actually
I really want lasers.
That's the
and
guitar
I have
you
found
want.
somewhere that will fit lasers. So maybe one day I will have lasers fitted to my guitar.
Blimey.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the thing, you know, I think that it becomes really like obvious in signature pedals. You know, when you see a signature wah pedal, I think for a long time, if you're like, yeah, I'd love, you're going to make your signature wah pedal, oh, I'd love this standard Crybaby I've used for 15 years. It's like, and then you're going to go and change it all, and it's like, but you've used just a standard Crybaby for...
Yeah, I do find that weird, because...
pedals, it doesn't work for pedals.
Yeah, but same with guitar, when someone does a signature guitar, and then it's totally different spec to anything they've ever played, and you're like, but you've never...
Well, you know, you say that. I mean, look at the Billy Sheehan Yamaha Attitude basses. Look at what he played before.
Look at them.
They're amazing. But look at what he played before that. He had a Fender Precision bass that he had cut an EBO humbucker into the neck position, and you know, it was full of, like, you know, shoved a great big bridge on there and a Hipshot detuner, and he'd shaved out the frets himself. He'd scalloped the frets on the high end himself, as well as doing, like, he has this little bit on, like, the bottom corner of the fretboard where it meets the body that he shaves off as well. But things
Stop
like that.
drooling.
Yeah, I know, okay. But he'd done that all himself on you know, his crappy old Fender P bass, and then got Yamaha to do that. Actually, the first BB signatures that he got, he was still scalloping the frets himself, because they wouldn't do that for him. But
really,
yeah, it's true. Yeah, you can watch some of his video interviews on his technique, and he's talking about this new pink Yamaha BB that Yamaha had given to him, and he was saying about how he was going over to Japan a little bit later to, like, meet the Yamaha guys, and he was a bit worried because he's already, like, scalloped bits out of it, and they've made it
one part of his technique videos. First, you get a chisel. Secondly, you get a hammer.
Is it playing technique or scalloping technique?
Yeah,
that's quite a niche DVD, isn't it? Quite niche.
Guide to scalloping. Yeah, I really want to learn how to use a scalloped fretboard.
He does do a guide to setups.
Really?
You can watch on YouTube, which is really useful. Yeah.
For this instructional DVD, you'll need one chisel.
He does actually, he encourages you to file your frets when you first buy a bass.
God.
That only can lead to disaster.
Yes. Please follow our guidelines, and perhaps not Mr. Sheehan's, when you buy a guitar from us.
Yes.
Let's do one more Fender that came out this year, and we're still raving about to this day. The Fender Johnny Marr. Now, we talked about guitarists who go in when they're designing their signature model and take parts of an existing design and kind of make it better, I guess. I mean, personally, for me, you know, Jaguars, I just find the controls are too confusing. There's too much on there. I end up not using much of it. I know why some people do, and some people love that setup. But for me, There's just too much. I
Yeah.
just don't need that.
Most people I know who play Jaguars have a lot of duct tape over
Yeah,
those
you see a
controls.
lot of gaffer over
Yeah.
the control plates. But the Johnny Marr isn't really like that, is it, Matt?
No, I mean, all right. I'm gonna put it out there. I don't really like Smiths, but
Oh, Jesus.
I'm putting it out there. But to be honest, I picked up this guitar because it looked like an awesome instrument. Like straight out of the box, I was like, that looks cooler than any other Jaguar I think we've had on the wall. And
Is it gold?
it's not actually.
All right.
It's actually they do a very similar. They do metallic KO, which is like a
What does the KO stand for, by the way?
Knockout?
I don't know.
Is that what the finish is called? Metallic KO?
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh.
Metallic I don't know.
Which is kind of like it's like a root beer
Yeah,
style.
which is awesome. But I really love the white because it's like a vintage white. Well, they say Olympic white, but I don't know. Just with the mixture of the scratch plate, it just looks kind of cool.
It's a bit more. It's a bit creamier, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
kind of,
I mean, basically, the nice thing is the neck shape is based on his '65 Jaguar. I mean, he's famous for playing a Jaguar. It's a vintage fretboard radius, which I'm never a huge fan of, but actually it plays really, really nicely. I mean, radius is one of those things that, you know, if you play it and you like it, you like it. But I think the main thing is that they're the custom wound bare knuckle pickups that they've done specifically for.
Oh, we've spoken about this before. I
Yeah.
totally forgot about
Well,
that. And I cannot believe
I
that.
rung bare knuckle and asked them if they would build them for my base 6, and they were like, we're sort of under license to it from Fender, because I said, look, you know, if you want the point of view of a guy in a guitar shop, you would sell tons of these pickups if you could, just because everyone who's played them gone, yeah, I'm not looking to buy a new guitar but at the moment, but man, those pickups sound amazing.
yeah.
And they're just really nice. They're not too bright, they're not too brittle sounding, they're really good for rhythm, and that switching system just makes all the difference. It's a 4-way blade position, which is bridge and neck in parallel, neck pickup, and then neck and bridge in series, which is almost the same as Jay's favourite guitar.
It's almost Baja Telly.
It's pretty much the Baja
Baja.
Telly. And then the switches are you've got, I think it's two switches on those? Yeah. So you've got like a bright switch for only one position and then a bright switch for the other 3.
Oh right. Okay.
So I just think
Oh, sweet.
it's a more usable guitar all round.
It sounds like he's looked at the guitar that he's got and gone, right, what do I actually use on this guitar? How can I make it so that everything else is stripped away and I get the stuff that I actually use, and then I can pass that on to people who are buying my signature
Yeah.
model,
Yeah.
rather than going, oh, I really love Les Pauls, let's build a flanger in there.
Yeah.
He's taken the stuff away that he doesn't use to make the guitar that they're selling with his name
Yeah,
on
exactly.
more
Well, it's
like
just-
the actual sound that he uses.
It's just exactly like the Slash that we've spoken about and the Coxsone. It's just like subtle alterations to something that's already great. And if those subtle alterations suit you as a player, then there is no reason to not get it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, he as it said, you know, as I'm reading here, like he's really into. As we know, when I think as we mentioned before, and he came in and we were like, "Are you looking for anything in particular?" He's like, "Oh, have you got any second-hand Jaguars or Jazzmasters?" And we were like, "No, but we've got this one." And pointed to his, and he was like, "Yeah, it's good, isn't it?" And we were like, "Yeah, it's really good,
really good."
And I think, you know, it must be tough because when you play a vintage instrument and you've fallen in love with a vintage guitar, you know, almost sometimes how can you replicate 40 years of playing and kind of character building, as it were, in, you know, a modern day instrument? And I think they've looked at his one and he's gone, yeah, but there are some faults with vintage gear, let's make it a little bit more modern. And things like I say, the switching, upgrading the saddles to the Mustang saddles that are kind of, they don't slip as much. They've put like nylon bridge post inserts into where the bridge goes, so it kind of stays a little bit more in tune, so you can use the trem a lot more, because obviously the trem on Jaguars usually is a bit cumbersome, I would say. And yeah, it's just, I think from the ground, he's almost gone, right, this is what we want, and then we've kind of just, so in itself, I think it's just a cool guitar. If you took Johnny Marr off it and Fender have gone, yeah, we'll just redesign this Jaguar, you'd go, yeah, that's an awesome guitar.
Yeah. If they bought that out as a kind of, I don't know, modern, I mean, think of one, you know, a classic name they could call it, like vintage modern Jaguar, American vintage modern Jag, and take Johnny Marr off it. entirely. You
Yeah.
could see them saying, look, we've got the American vintage stuff, which is year correct, it's got all the old features, or your other option is something that looks vintage but with the kind of really usful upgrades. That would be a really cool guitar as well. It just happens to be that Johnny Marr's got involved, and
I think actually what's really cool about it, apart from the fact that it comes with a really cool case, because it's got this really cool blue crushed velvet interior, looks awesome, is that they actually include, because he's like, well, look, realistically everyone's not going to be into this, so set it up with 10 to 46s, a standard gauge string, but I use flat rounds and I use 11s, so stick a set in the case as well. Yeah, so there's a set of flat round 11s in there as well, so if you really want to go all out, you can put 11
Wow, that's a touch.
Well, yeah.
That's a great idea.
And I mean, with that, I think following on from that, and obviously the success of that one, what they've done, because he's mentioned it in videos, although we've not seen any official release on it yet, it's the Troy Van Leeuwen from Queens of the Stone Age. They're doing a signature.
Fender?
Oh, really?
Yeah, he mentioned it in a few videos as well with Fender, and that they're going to be awesome. I think they're going to be Mexican built as well, so they
to be affordable.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you say affordable. I mean, these are $1,550. And I think it's probably the best Jaguar you can buy for the money without going to a custom shop one.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned affordable. Two signature models that are perhaps a bit more affordable than the American stuff that we talked about are the Ibanez Chris Miller and Ibanez Cameron Liddell. I'm going to say that's how you pronounce his name. It might be Liddell, but let's go with Liddell.
Oh, brilliant. I'm glad you researched this.
Well, I mean, you can't get pronunciation from Wikipedia. Oh, wait, you can. So Ibanez have kind of gone the other way. When a lot of brands are doing kind of legacy artists, people like Johnny Marr, that perhaps he's a great player, and as we mentioned, we love the guitar, but he's not really a current artist. I guess he's not doing too much. He's certainly not in the kind of heyday of his career. Chris Miller, I believe, plays for Yumi at 6. Is that right, Matt? You've got the spec in front of you there.
Yes, I am just reading the spec.
Oh, my sister's favourite band.
Yeah, they're kind of like a British poppy, like emo-y metal band, I guess.
Go with that.
But you were about to say Thing there, weren't you?
Yeah, I was about to say Thing. Yeah. And I've seen them once. They were quite good. And we're going to sound like the oldest of old men here.
Yeah, we really are. This is the problem.
But
you, me at 6, but it's 7 o'clock now.
Yeah, I saw them. I thought they were really good. And we'd just done a video demo on the guitar, which went up a couple of days ago. Very, very impressive indeed. Matt, what's the spec?
I mean, it looks awesome. I'd not yet seen one in store. I don't think we've had one come into the store yet. Probably because they do tend, these sort of signature ones, the first runs tend to go pretty damn quickly. But I mean, so I run down on it, mahogany body, maple neck, bolt on, 22 frets, 9.5-inch radius. But then the coolest thing about it is the pickup configuration, because it's a humbucker in the bridge but a P90 in the neck.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Plus a coil tap for the bridge pickup, which is on a push-pull, which is always good. But yeah, an awesome guitar. I mean,
it's based on a Road Gear, and I know, Joe, you've got a bit of love for the kind of Ibanez Roadstar, Roadster, Road Gear series.
Best basses ever made, ever.
They were kind of 70s and 80s, just really rugged.
The really end of the 70s. So I don't even know if it was 78. I'm pretty sure it was 79 and then into kind of the early to mid 80s. But yeah, ridiculously rugged. It was kind of a point, I suppose, where Ibanez started moving away from copying other people, copying sort of Fender and Gibson, and we're like, let's make our own shapes and our own gear, but let's make it really awesome. Yeah. And also, let's make it really heavy, because those things all weigh a ton. Guitars and basses.
I think that the nice thing is, actually, it reminded me of a conversation I was having the other day, and someone was like, Fender and Gibson's like, I've played a lot. I want to go. I just want something from another brand that's not expensive that I can just add to my guitar collection. And you go, oh, mate, why don't you try an Ibanez? And they're like, nah, necks are too thin, the fretboard radius is too flat. And it's like, with something like this, you're like, well, actually, no, it kind of almost looks like a weird steam-rolled Jaguar, because it's a little bit flattened, but that's got a really nice pickup in the bridge. It's going to be really kind of going to have a lot of grunt in the neck. It's got push pull. It's 9.5. It's a rosewood fretboard.
It kind of looks like Jaguar meets Les Paul.
Yeah, it is really halfway between those two shapes, isn't it?
And I think that just means that you can go, that's a cool guitar. I mean, you'd go, you want something different. I'd play it and go, this is great, and then someone went, it's Chris Miller's signature, I'd be like, Huh?
Yeah. And I think that actually might work in his favour because, you know, he's not... I mean, from listening to them, you know, the playing is really good and, like I said, we really like the guitar. But he's not, you know, Eric Clapton or Stevie Ray Vaughan.
No.
I think it actually kind of works in his favour because someone might just walk in and go, I'm not 100% sure who Chris Miller is, but that guitar is awesome. Rather than going, yeah, I really like the tone of Stevie Ray Vaughan Strats, but... I really hate Stevie Ray Vaughan.
I think that's the thing, and I was going to mention it earlier. Say something like David Gilmour, for example. I think they are an amazing guitar. The custom shop Dave Gilmour's there's a lot of work that's gone into it, and they're just really spot on. But most people who I've ever sold one to or play one are kind of into that style or want to play like that and want that look. And I don't think you would necessarily go to that guitar if you're like, yeah, I want a cool sounding Strat.
No.
Even though it sounds cool, you're going to look at it and go, that's Gilmour's guitar. Where you'd look at this and go, that's just a cool looking guitar. Like you say, I'm not really sure maybe who this player is, but I'll pick it up and yeah, that's a great guitar.
You know, Snowy White is guitar for Roger Waters.
Yeah. And he played on a lot of the Floyd recordings as well.
But he has his own 59 Les Paul, a proper 59 Les Paul, which he uses for everything. But he has a Gilmour custom shop to do the Roger Waters.
There's a funny fact about him actually, was that he did a lot of session work for Pink Floyd, and especially a lot during The Wall, because The Wall, like Richard Wright was a session player, and he actually played. They accidentally deleted one of Gilmour's solos, so he had to record the solo, which then made it on the 8-track cartridge version of The Wall only. So on one, there's a version of one of the tracks on The Wall that's only got him on the solo because they accidentally deleted Gilmour's and then didn't tell him, and then they had to we just need to do a solo for another track, and then they just pulled it and then copied it onto something else.
Let's just hope that he never got a copy of the 8-track version of The Wall.
Yeah, he's like, that's not me. What's going on? But yeah, he's it's funny because he's been playing for Floyd for years,
and he now uses.
Well, he has his for the Roger Waters tour,
but he uses the custom shop Gilmour Strats
for all the Pink Floyd stuff that they do. He has a custom shop.
Wow. Well, there we go. I mean, that's kind of taking this concept to the nth degree, isn't it? Is basically standing in for the player whose signature model you have to use that particular gig.
I think the thing is, if you were doing a tribute band, you probably would want to go for a signature model because, like I think we mentioned before, there's a really nice guy who comes in who's does a Queen thing, and he's got a Brian May and a Vox, and if you were going to do a Rolling Stones tribute band, you'd probably, if you were doing Keith Richards, you'd have a Telly, maybe not a Strat.
Well, and I think this is kind of going to sum up what signature models do, and this, regardless of your opinion on them, they're a really easy way of getting the person's tone who you either need to emulate for doing covers or you really like and you want to emulate for the fact that you really like their sound. It is just a really simple way of getting to that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk about the last Ibanez that I mentioned, which is the Ibanez Cameron Liddell. Now, Cameron, I believe, plays for a band called Asking Alexandria. Joe Branton, you know about young hip music. What do you know about Asking Alexandria?
Absolutely nothing.
Matt Knight.
Oh my god, the guitar looks amazing. I haven't seen it, but that looks incredible.
So what's the actual model number? Because Ibanez have got
CLM1. Sorry, I must point out that sometimes we don't exactly see every guitar that ever comes into the in the warehouse, because sometimes they go out, and it's the first time I've seen it, and it is awesome. So what is that? That's like some X-rays of thistles on the front.
Yeah, it's got almost like a spiderweb design. So let's point out that it kind of looks like a Les Paul, basically.
It looks like a one pickup Les Paul, and everyone knows that everyone really wants a one pickup Les Paul.
Single pickup in the bridge, and what pickups in there?
We've got basically mahogany body, rosewood fretboard, and then I believe it's just a standard Ibanez humbucker that they put in there. Yeah.
It's kind of got that headstock from things like the Omar Rodriguez model, which is based on that GAX guitar, which is kind of like a squarer Les Paul headstock, I guess. But I mean, what really kind of sets it apart is that body, isn't it? That it's It almost kind of looks like a Les Paul Junior, but with this weird X-ray spider's webby design.
Spider's web plus thistles in like a 3D sort of effect. It's awesome.
The reason I put this on the list actually is because, to me, I would buy this guitar if I was a fan of the band. I mean, obviously it's a nice guitar. Ibanez make really good guitars in general, and when they do stuff like this that is away from their regular RG or S series shapes, they're still really good guitars. But
I think it's sorry.
I would say that if you're looking for just a single pickup Les Paul, this probably isn't the place to look. But if you really like this band,
exactly. I think this is fighting
the
the argument exactly the other way. I think as soon as you include airbrushing on a finish, then that's definitely kind of in the territory of this is that band's.
I don't know. It's tough
model.
because
I mean that looks great. That's really cool airbrushing.
I hope that maybe, if Cameron Liddell was listening, and he wouldn't be offended and say that I'm not really sure about him or the band, but actually if someone gave me that guitar, I'd be like, yeah, that would be my exact same reaction. This looks awesome, and I'm sure if I plugged it in, I'd be like, this is a cool guitar.
It's just got a volume control.
Yeah,
just a volume
single
control.
volume. It's ticking all the right boxes for the podcast crew, basically. Single pickup, single volume, no messing around.
It's like the Buckethead, with just the.
That's great, yeah.
The little two Atari buttons that both did exactly the same thing.
Worth mentioning on the Cameron Liddell, there is a video demo going up probably next week that we did with Luke, who does some of our videos, and the guitar sounds really, really nice. That pickup is chunky, and the build quality is all there, as you would imagine, from Ibanez. Joe Branton, let's do a couple of quick bases. You've spoken about the Mike Dirnt already, but that is one that came out this year.
He's kind of redone it this year, hasn't he?
Bit of a weird choice, really, because you don't often see.
Redo it?
Yeah, you don't often see signature models, and particularly ones that are that simple, being redone. Like the only thing I can think of,
the Hoppus. They redid the Hoppus, they flipped the pickups around, and they changed the finishes.
That's true.
That's exactly
that one,
kind of what they've done with the Dirnt.
And the Clapton, made a few changes to the Clapton in the past, haven't they?
So I mean, the Claptons have been around for a long time, and I think there's always been like subtle changes, but I suppose he's never really kind of massively changed his guitar.
Well, it's the pickups, isn't it, that have been the main thing.
And I think as they move with time and do different things, they've gone, put these ones in.
Because they were, originally lace sensors, then moved to vintage noiseless, and they're now...
They're still noiseless, but I don't think they're vintage noiseless, or they might be hot noiseless.
Aren't they the SCNs, or they were SCNs?
No, they're not. No, because I was discussing this with a chap the other day, because we got a deluxe down which have got N3s, but the Claptons have still got the noiseless.
Okay.
But they do noiseless, and then they do vintage noiseless as well now. They're a little bit more rounded sounding, got a little bit more bottom end. They sound more like a traditional Strat sounding pickup, whereas the noiselesses, especially the hot ones, they stray away from that sort of traditional Strat sound.
Definitely.
And they're kind of a little bit brighter, and they cut through a little bit more. Which actually the Clapton Strat, you think, someone who's played on loads of those records and it's got all that extra switching in, actually as a guitar.
Yeah, it's very useful.
A good friend of mine who came along to the Gibson night that we did actually has two Clapton Strats which he uses for like a real hard rock band.
Really?
Which they're tuned, he uses at the moment 14s to 72s.
Oh my
and it's tuned down to G.
That's so awesome. That's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Clapton Strats, do you know what I mean? You wouldn't go, Clapton, you remember when he was using 14s and tuning down to G?
I love that album.
Yeah, I love that.
That's good.
That album with Meshuggah.
Yeah.
Clap Sugar in his Screamo days.
Clap Sugar.
Big. Yeah, and actually, when you think about the features on the Clapton, it kind of lends itself well to that because they are quite. They're kind of a big V, so they are a bit chunkier than a normal Strat neck. Plus, it's basically got a distortion belt distortion pedal built into the guitar.
Yeah,
because it's got 15 or 20 dB gain boost.
Yeah, and you've got the TPX control, which is the active boost or cut. I mean, there isn't another Fender that's got that on there.
No,
and from a player, you wouldn't necessarily expect. It's bizarre, but it works for that sort of thing.
Yeah. So, what are the changes that the Mike Dirnt has undergone?
Well, it's a bit of an odd one. I think it's an odd one because the original Mike Dirnt, obviously, I keep mentioning the Mike Dirnt and the Hoppus together, and that's obviously because the bands are so
Well, one ripped off the other one.
Yeah, well, one was substantially better than the other one. You mean?
Anyway,
So these two bands, one really good, one sort of set out to sort of fake American politics band. Both had signature precision basses, both around kind of between sort of the 500 and sort of £700 mark, which I think, considering that for both bands. The sort of fan base that they're going to be pulling is going to be younger people. I think that's kind of a safe amount for those Fenders to cost. So this is a bit of an odd one for the Mike Dirnt because it has had a massive upgrade. It has basically become a road worn. So they're now the finish is now road worn for the Mike Dirnt. And you can now get it in a rosewood and maple neck. They've changed the scratch plate to being black, so it's more kind of authentic, like the sort of the I suppose the original 50s P basses. It's kind of like got a lot lent on those sort of 51 P basses, but then with a 57 pickup in there. So yeah, it's just massive upgrades, and to make it road worn and then have a neck choice on there, maple or rosewood, makes it quite high-endy, and it's around the sort of £1,000 mark, which is a lot for a punk rock signature
Well,
bass.
I think, you know, if you bought it sort of maybe 10 years ago, you were probably a kid, you had a little bit less money. Now
go up to the new one.
go up to the new one.
But they've done a new Squire as well, haven't they? Which is,
That's
I think,
right,
just a colour change.
That's right, yeah, just a colour change.
For me, they looked loads better because I actually used to own one of the black Mike Dirns, or maybe it was a white one. It was a long time ago. I've forgotten which one.
On it, yeah,
it did have a star, and it was kind of like
have a big star, and they were very basic spec, weren't they?
Well, actually, I mean, this is a perfect argument, kind of either for or against signature models, depends where you fall on it. Things like that, a big star on the front of the bass, made me kind of go, yeah, I don't really like this.
Yeah.
Whereas now, they've just gone for a vintage-looking design. There's nothing really on the front of the guitar that says Mike Dirnt. There's no star on there. They've put the tortoiseshell scratch plate on. They just look loads better, and actually for someone who's not into signature models, that's now a viable option.
Yeah, they are wicked. I tell you what's really weird, actually. When I was reading the spec for the Squire one, because I did a video demo for it, it says that they've moved the star from the front where it used to be to the neck plate, which is where it is on the Fender, on the old Fender. It wasn't there when I checked it out. So and there's no signature on it. So there is nothing on the Squire Mike Dirnt that says it's a Mike Dirnt, because he has a star symbol in place of his signature.
Yeah.
But there's nothing on it. So the Squire is in no way marked to be
Mike Dirnt, except on the box.
Except on the box, yeah, except for the shape.
Wow.
That's it.
So there was one other signature that I wanted to talk about, and simply because we did a rundown of the Fender and Squire punk basses, and this one somehow got left off. I think it might have just come out a little bit later than the rest of them. The Squire Chris Aiken.
Chris Aiken from Strung Out. Yeah, I mean, I think this is quite a good argument against... well, actually, maybe both, because this is, on spec, a perfect precision bass. For the money, it is ludicrous value, but on looks, I think it's going to be extremely love-hate. So spec-wise, I'll run you through first. It's a Squire P bass that's hitting the shelves at sub £300. You are getting a vintage lacquered maple neck with pearl block inlays.
Yes.
Already, that is awesome.
You're talking my language.
I'm into it.
What?
You're talking my language.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. They're awesome. So, buy it for the neck alone. Then we've got a Duncan design quarter pounder style pickup, which sounds amazing. So you're getting a high output precision pickup, quarter pounder style, in a sub £300 instrument, which, again, ridiculous. They've ditched the tone control. Great. So you've just got a single volume control. So on that kind of spec, this is an absolutely amazing sounding, feels incredible to play, punching miles and miles above its price tag weight. But it's got a mirror scratch plate. It's white with a mirror scratch plate.
I'm in.
Yeah, I know you're in.
Where's the bad point?
Well, because it's definitively a Chris Aiken.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it differs, I suppose, from the things we've been looking at in the rest of them, that they're just interesting. If it had a taut scratch plate, it would just be a 62 P bass with a slightly cooler neck.
Yep.
And the higher output pickup ditching the tone control. But because it's gone for the mirror, it's now definitely an artist model.
See, for me, that is why I love a lot of signature models, and that bass sums up very nicely in that Fender or Squier would never make that guitar under a normal kind of branding. They would never call that the modern retro classic series. But because there's an artist attached to it, they just went, oh yeah, he designed it.
Yeah.
They would never do that otherwise, if there wasn't that kind of extra element to it. And for me, that's one of the best looking instruments in the entire shop.
I mean, that just allows you to get something different.
Yeah.
Well, that is true. It does allow you to get something different. I mean, the interview with him about it is great because he didn't play something like that. He never had like a Fender with a maple neck and block inlays and a mirror plate. He was like, he'd designed it with all the specs, so the quarter pounder style pickup, he really likes maple necks.
Yeah.
He really wanted something with pearl block inlays, but he'd never had that before. And he was like, yeah, and I just thought, a mirror scratch plate would just make it look cool. That's it. So there's no...
I like that when artists just go, right, I finally got to the point in my career where I can have a signature model, I'm going to go mental. And for me, that works, and that's why I think signature models... to kind of almost conclude this segment, I think for me that is why we should keep signature models, stick with them, because otherwise you wouldn't sometimes get the crazy guitars that you do, like things like the Yngwie Malmsteen with a completely scalloped board.
Yeah.
Just the more out there stuff, the more crazy stuff, you have to have an artist attached, otherwise it would never get made.
True.
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
I agree. Very quickly to throw it in again, also the Mustang.
Mikey Way.
The Mikey Way. Just
that would
for
never
someone
get
who's
made.
taken a Mustang to
and I
the
would buy
next
it
level.
just because it looks awesome.
Yeah, it looks incredible. Large flake and having that humbucker. Who knows if Mikey Way in fact inspired the pawn shop Mustangs that came shortly after?
I think, yes, it was coincidence that they came soon after. But yeah, again, these guitars wouldn't get made. Signature models.
Yeah.
Yeah, big thumbs up from the podcast crew.
Yeah, fair enough.
Whether you like the guitarist or musician or not, signature models are awesome.
Matt Knight, today something big happened in your life.
Literally big.
The happiest I've ever seen you.
You make it sound like I'm just constantly depressed.
Well, I know. I mean,
you were
are
just extremely happy.
You are a very happy man because you work with guitar pedals, essentially.
Yeah.
But today, one has made you even happier than you normally are.
Yeah.
What got delivered today?
Well, the biggest secret this year, the Strymon Big Sky multi-dimensional reverberator.
I mean...
to use its full official name. For a long time, I was like, look, I want a ridiculous reverb. I've been using the Timeline for a long time. Strymon didn't do anything. The Blue Sky was wicked, but it didn't do enough. And I was like, maybe I'll just get, I'll get an Eventide bass. They're awesome. And then I woke up one morning, I think it was like a Sunday morning, and Strymon had went, yeah. They did an event called the Strymon Social in America, and they're like, look, all the people from Strymon, because we're still a fairly small company, are meeting at this pub, come along, we're going to play a gig and you get to try a load of Strymon pedals. And it just so happens that they were like, oh yeah, we've made this like wicked reverb pedal that's like awesome, that's like the Timeline but for reverbs. And then that was it. That was their official announcement of it. And then they hit the shelves today, 2 weeks after they'd announced it, if that. So it's been like a ridiculously well kept secret, and it's effectively the Strymon's version. It's the equivalent of a Timeline, but just for reverb. So 300 presets, if you can imagine it.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I know. That is a lot.
Matt Knight, you've got one. Do you think you're going to fill up those 300 presets?
No,
I'm probably guessing yes, he will.
Fill them up and use them all at one show.
The thing is, I bought a Timeline and it can have 100 presets but it's 50 presets doubled, so it's 50 and then you get the same again after 50. And actually, I went through all of them, and there's only a few I thought these are unusable. That all the presets they've put in them are wicked.
Can you overwrite the presets?
Yeah, you can overwrite the presets in there. And actually, this one that the Timeline doesn't have is that you can actually plug it in via MIDI I think you can buy a MIDI to USB cable, or you plug it into your interface, and then there's some Librarian software for it, so you can actually organise all your presets, which is amazing. But it's the same sort of thing. So you've got 12 reverb machines, as they call it, room, hall, plate, spring, which are kind of fairly standard. Then you get into the weird ones: swell, bloom, cloud, choral.
The infinite
shimmer,
power of the cloud.
Magneto, non-linear, and reflections.
What other
Choral,
comic villains have they named them after?
Choral
Ultron.
Decepticon. Just makes transformer noises. But like choral, for example, is a reverb, but with actual choral oohs, ahs, and other vowel sounds underneath. So you can basically create like choruses.
So the preset that you'd find on keyboards just labelled scat, basically.
Yeah.
Well, you were trying out earlier in the shop, and we became aware that there was no need for a keyboard player anymore.
Well, yeah, or a vocalist.
Or just a band.
Yeah, because you can turn the delay. Because every preset, if you hold down the button, it can either be infinite reverb, or you can have it as kind of like a hold mode, like a freeze mode.
It's like a loop.
So you can either freeze it, so you can play normal unaffected guitar over the top, or you can have it in like hold mode, where it will hold the reverb, but as you play, it'll add more reverb on top. It was just, I don't know. And actually, the most amazing thing about it is it's got cab emulation on it. So
what?
Yeah, so you can plug it direct into a PA or a mixing desk, and it will sound good.
Oh, that's so good.
Because the company that they're actually derived from, Damage Control, did a lot of preamps. The effects in there, the actual cab effects in there, are amazing.
I have to admit, I was blown away, and we laugh at how nerdy you are and
about pedals,
how slightly weird you are about pedals.
Yeah.
This is one where you plugged it in, and I went, "Yeah, he's right. He's got a point."
Well, the
good.
ridiculous thing is that it's not. Yes, you can plug it in and you can go shimmer and you can go, and it will sound amazing for like hours because you hit one note and the decay will go on forever. But actually, the algorithms for it, for actual room sounds and stuff like that sound incredible. It sounds like proper rooms.
Yeah.
And with the reflections, they've actually created, I think it's something like 250 different room reflections they've captured and then kind of added into this algorithm, so you can actually get it to sound like it's sitting in a corner, or you've like mounted it high on the ceiling and it'll actually sound like. So for cab emulation and for direct recording, it's perfect because you can just have your guitar sound, plug it into that, you get the reverb and the cab sound, so it sounds just like you're miking something up.
Amazing.
Joe Branton.
Yes.
What have you been playing this week?
This week I'm going to go for like a double header.
Okay.
Because
is it two heads?
It should be. I was thinking about doing that. In fact, I've been thinking about doing that for some time, starting to play with two heads and split my signal. The only problem is I would be a sound guy's nightmare.
Yes.
So that's why I don't.
How to instantly make your band sound bad live. Just really annoy the sound man by bringing two amps with you.
Billy Sheehan uses two heads.
I think he probably has his own sound man as well.
True. Yes, so my stuff pick for this week is two things which I'm thinking about getting. It is the Ashdown ABM 900 and the Ashdown ABM 610 cabinet. Firstly, because they're so ludicrously affordable for what they are, and secondly, just because they're awesome. So if you're in a band that need to make more noise, then I think if you are competing with a guitarist or two who are using 412s, I think you do need more than the 410 if you want to really, move some air. And I think 810s are ridiculously cumbersome, as you will well know, Mark.
Yeah.
For lugging one around for years.
Yeah. And
I think a 610 is kind of just a nice in between, something that I think is still usable for a musician who might play like a smaller club show or kind of a larger festival show sort of thing. And the ABM 900 is, we've got them on a deal at the moment, and the ABM 900 is sub £700 for a head that's offering 575 watts plus 575 watts if you're bi-amping it. that going through a 4-ohm 610 is absolutely massive. I'm just really impressed with the ABM 900 for what it is, for how much less it is than to buy than the ABM 1000, and you're still getting kind of all the options. You're still getting the kind of the 3 rotary controlled EQ that Ashdown have with their 4 faders for your high and low mids. You're still getting a separate valve drive on there. You're still getting a sub-harmonic on there, and you're still getting the onboard Ashdown compression, as long with kind of their push-pull flat or shaped EQ preset, which just means that the head will do an awful lot, which is wicked. And I just think 610s maybe, you know, we're moving towards a time where people are looking for kind of smaller cabs, and I think that's wrong. I think big cabs are...
Just keep going, old school.
I just think they're awesome. I think you need to push air, and I think it's just I think it's just false, just trying to move to small cabs. Yeah, great if you want to play, you know, a pub or a church, and that's it. But you know, if
just get a Big Sky cab emulation
straight into the PA with loads of reverb, make it sound like you've got a huge cab.
Yeah.
I just think kind of for the money that you're paying for an ABM 900 and a 610, the amount of just solid, ridiculous, giggable rig you are getting there is absolutely amazing, which is why I'm thinking about getting one.
We're going to have to wrap up fairly soon because Matt Knight is looking at me like he needs to get his train and is sort of putting his shoes on as we speak. I just want to mention that quickly, my staff pick is the Shure GLX-D16, which we've just done a video for, which has gone live on the site today, which is a digital wireless system that is built, the receiver is built into a really, really high quality guitar pedal tuner. So if you kind of been wary of kind of rack mounted receivers for wireless systems before and you thought they were kind of old school and a bit bulky, this is the thing for you. And it's got a few other things that are really nice in there. It's this Link Freak technology, which allows it to scan for the optimum frequency each time.
Oh, that's pretty smart.
And it's constantly doing it, so you're constantly getting the best signal.
There was no difference from plugging in a cable to plugging in that, really.
No, it sounded exactly the same. We went from trying the same guitar with a cable to trying it with the system, and it sounded exactly the same. Do check out the video and check out the GLX D16 because I think wireless systems get a lot more grief than they deserve, but sometimes I do think it's justified. Sometimes they just don't really work as well as they should, whereas this really does the business and is great for guitarists because you can put it on your board. Let's quickly do some questions because Matt Knight is running off as we speak.
He's got to go to London.
He's got to go right now. Matt,
I really apologise for that.
I need you to answer this one though. Okay. This is from Crit on Facebook who says, "Hi guys, love the podcast. Need advice. Was going to buy a Mooga Fuga MF 104M delay pedal, but now they're going to release the mini Fuga delays. Is it worth waiting?" Additionally to what I wrote here, he has got a lot of the Mooga Fuga stuff already, the full size pedals. Yeah. Matt Knight, what should he do?
I would wait, and actually I would like to answer this question in more depth next week because I am seriously waiting for those little pedals, and I own some of the bigger pedals and I could talk about it a lot.
Shall we answer this one next week?
Yeah, because
for now we're saying wait.
I would wait, and I've got a really good lengthy answer. Those Moog delays are awesome. The big ones, but they are a lot of money. And actually, from the videos, I think the little ones are going to be. I think they're going to be really, really good units. They're going to be a serious compared to things like Carbon Copy or something like that.
Let's talk about this more in depth next week. We're doing an acoustic special next week, I think, but at the end we'll make sure that we have enough time for some questions that we haven't got around to.
You can plug an acoustic into pedals.
Oh, acoustic with loads of delay.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, there's a great band called ICB's I Won. Which is,
that's not a thing.
They're a band called ICB's I Won. Now ICB's I Won, which is exactly the same either way round you write it, if you think about that.
Oh.
They're an instrumental two-piece math band, and the guitarist plays an acoustic and through a lot of delay pedals. Check them out for a guy who knows how to use pedals through an acoustic. Right. Now ICB's I Won.
We also had another question this week from Sean on Twitter, and I think we should maybe do this next week as well. He says, just wondering if you guys had any thoughts on the new Rocksmith 2014. Now, you guys are looking at me like you have no idea what that is.
Rock who? Who's
Rock
Smith?
Hudson.
Smith?
Rock Smith.
Smith.
John Smith's. Rock Smith is
The game, right?
it's a game, but
Yeah.
you use actual guitars to trigger
and you
the.
jack via USB into
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we should do some research, and
Can we get a free?
Can we play it?
Yeah, we need to get someone to
Free-
send us a copy.
Does
we
it
need
have
to have a
bass?
go.
I think this week I'm going to try and get us a copy of Rocksmith
And let's play
2014,
it, Yeah,
and we
we'll
should
play
do a kind of.
we'll see how bad we really are.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, we're all going to be absolutely terrible. So I think we should play
What
it.
do you mean? There's no pedal board option?
Yeah. There's no virtual pedal board included, or maybe there is. So I think, Sean, apologies because I did say that we were going to answer your question this week, but none of us have had the time to play it, and I'd rather we got our.
We're totally playing it this week.
Yeah, maybe we'll record the podcast while we're
console?
playing it.
What console
Yeah.
can you play it on?
I haven't had time to look, but I assume we've got an Xbox here, so I assume that we'll just there'll be an
Sweet.
Xbox version.
Right.
So Sean, sorry we can't answer it this week, but let's have a segment next week where we attempt to play a computer game that tells us how bad we are at guitar, even though we play them all
Yeah.
the time for a living.
Yeah.
If
Right.
you've got any questions, you can always email them through. And actually, we've been terrible this week, so we haven't really answered either question, but we
Yeah,
normally
that's
do.
pretty
I think we're saving them up probably.
Yeah,
let's
next
save them
week
up.
we'll do some more because we won't be able to talk about acoustics for a whole podcast.
No, who wants to even listen to that?
Well,
you shouldn't have introduced it.
people who like acoustics. We've got a special guest next week to do acoustics. But yeah, if you've got questions, we do normally try and answer them, and we will normally get through them. Podcast@gak.co.uk. Alternatively, you can send us them on Twitter, which is @gak_co_uk. Or on Facebook, facebook.com/GAK Music. I man all that stuff, but if you want to get in touch with me personally, you can on Twitter is your best way. @Mark_random. Joe Branton, how can people get in touch with you?
If you want to get in touch with me via email, you can email me on joe.branton@gak.co.uk, or my Twitter handle is @Yosef_900. I'll be talking about Ashdown gear all week.
Matt Knight, how can people get in touch with
As
you?
I said, my Twitter fans out there
Oh
can
my
get me
God.
on.
They're not fans.
I just thought, I'd just carry it on, just roll with it. It's @Matt_Knight, that's Knight with SIE on the end, or you can email me matt.knight@gak.co.uk, and I'm going to run and get a train because
Have a good train journey.
I fantastically live in London now.
It's not
so if anyone
fantastic.
wants to come and hang out with me in London,
No one
we'll
wants to
become
see you in
friends
London.
first, and then maybe we can meet.
Talking just quickly, really quickly, talking about that Strymon social that you were discussing earlier.
I think that I will talk to you about it tomorrow. I think we should do a GAK social.
Let's have a booze up and talk about pedals and guitars and the like.
good.
If you want to get involved in that, podcast@gak.co.uk.
Bye.
Matt Knight, see you
Bye, Matt
later.
Knight.
Bye-bye.
Podcast listeners, thanks very much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
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 Farewell.
Peanut butter on toast, baby.